when this technology first became available, it was a, oh my gosh, what are we going to do moment. It's new and it can be a little bit scary and intimidating, especially with the hundreds of apps that are now available. Banning is doing more harm than good. It's making AI almost more alluring to our students than anything. AI is not Google. It's a really great brainstorming partner.
July 10th, the EdHeroes Global Forum, Technology and Innovation in Education. It's free, it's fully online, it's open to everyone. Hello everyone. Today we are diving into how AI is entering schools and universities around the world. Our guest is Natasha Berg, an educator and an incredible TEDx speaker from the US, someone who helps integrate technology into classroom education to make the skills of students more relevant. Welcome, Natasha. Can we start talking about what we mean by AI in the classroom? Is it just kids using ChatGPT for essays, or is it more?
I think a little bit of both. So I think a lot of it, especially at schools where they don't have a structured, AI plan or AI curriculum, students are kind of defaulting to ChatGPT because that's what they've heard of. It's probably one of the more user-friendly platforms. I know a lot of students are also, especially in the United States, using the AI on Snapchat. So they have like a little built-in AI that they can converse with, like they're talking to a friend. So I've heard lots of students using that as well. And in the classroom, it just kind of depends on the teacher, I'd say. Some teachers use ChatGPT, but I think a lot are a little bit more afraid of it, which I think we'll get into kind of that discussion a little bit later too. But right now it's mainly different platforms that are built around education that I think more teachers are using because they're more targeted to educators and being utilized within the classroom.
Makes sense. What about yourself? What are you using?
Oh my gosh. It's probably be easier to say what I'm not using. No, I'm just kidding. I use a lot. So part of my job is exploring new and emerging educational technologies. So I try to keep up with the hundreds that are being developed, and there are hundreds. It's overwhelming, especially if you're a teacher just first kind of delving into AI in education. For me personally, I do use ChatGPT when I'm teaching students how to use AI, and then I kind of start introducing them to other platforms. And so some of my favorites to use in the classroom with students, I particularly like School AI is one of my favorites because I can basically program an AI to interact with the students how I want it to interact with them. So, like, for example, teaching English, I would program the AI to work with them as a writing partner, but to not do any of the actual writing for them. So they can use it to help them brainstorm ideas, but it's not going to generate an essay for them. And then the other tool that I really like using is Class Companion, and that's another great writing tool. I can enter a prompt, and then students, when they respond to the prompt, they'll get feedback immediately from the AI, and then they have another chance to respond and make their prompts better. So that one's really nice because it's giving live feedback as the students are working, and it saves me a lot of grading time. And then from creating actual tools to use in the classroom, I love Magic School AI. It's a great platform for educators because I can create unit plans, lesson plans, quizzes, tests, worksheets, like all of these things with the click of a button. And it saves a lot of prep time for me.
That's amazing. That's so neat. Thank you for the tips.
Yeah.
And what about some of the more common ones? Like, would you recommend DeepSeek over ChatGPT or something like that for regular kind of inexperienced users?
I would say regular inexperienced users, ChatGPT is going to be one of the best to start with because, like I said, it is very user-friendly, but also Claude AI is another one of my favorites. Claude AI, I think, also does a really nice job integrating PDFs. So what I like better about Claude than ChatGPT is it's kind of, the same general platform where you're just kind of conversing with the chatbot, but it will generate like PDFs and worksheets for you. And it'll put the response from the AI right here and then the generated work right next to it. So you can kind of view them alongside each other, which at this point in time, ChatGPT does not do.
Makes sense. And what about your colleagues, like all the other teachers? How do they feel about integration of AI into education? I can see you smiling. Is there resistance? Is there acceptance? What's going on?
Yes, it's a little bit of both. Obviously, ChatGPT at this point, oh gosh, came out see, November of 2022. So it's been a few years now. I think like about 3.5 years since it first came out. And a lot has changed since it came out. But I think a lot of teachers are just overwhelmed in general, right? Speaking as an educator and as someone who works with educators every day, they have so much on their plate. And I think when this technology first became available, it was a, oh my gosh, what are we going to do moment where they were so hesitant and they just put the brakes on. So we had schools across the United States banning AI every chance that they got. Like the new one cropped up and they put a ban on it and they were banning as many as they could. I'm very fortunate to work in a kind of forward thinking school, and my principal, especially, is very forward thinking. And so we ended up not banning AI use in our school, and we started thinking about ways that we can work with it rather than against it. However, that being said, even 3 years in on kind of giving professional development to our teachers, training them on how to use these tools, I think more often than not, the teachers in my building are not using AI in any capacity, despite having resources available to them and training. It's new and it can be a little bit scary and intimidating, especially with the hundreds of apps that are now available. It's overwhelming, especially if you're new and don't know where to start. So I would say we have about maybe a 50-50 split in my school, where half are on board and using it for everything and love it. And then the other half haven't even tried it because they're not sure where to start or they're too scared to take the dive. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's scary. There's so much going on with AI. I think it's quite overwhelming, especially if you're an educator and you want to try to do the right thing. But you're also talking about bans. I think different governments, different schools, different people are handling this very, very differently. Would you say that in your experience, bans have been effective?
Absolutely not. No way. You tell someone not to do something, I mean, they're gonna wanna do it. They gotta find out why, especially teenagers. So I work primarily with high school students. Any teenager, you tell them no, they're gonna question you immediately, like, "Why? Why can't I use this? Like, what's so wrong with it?" And they're seeing it on their social media platforms, and, they have immediate access to it on their cell phones, and so it's kind of becoming more of like a, "Why wouldn't I use this great tool that's available to me?" type of thing. So, I think banning is doing more harm than good because it's making these tools, this AI, almost more alluring to our students than anything. Like, they wanna explore what they're not allowed to use, so to speak.
Makes sense. I guess everyone is a little bit scared of what AI is doing, and I think even teachers and parents are scared now of what is it doing to the quality of their kids' education. Is cheating, I'm guessing, is a very big concern right now, and just generally the quality of educations that some kids are receiving. Is there anything that you'd say to comfort maybe parents and their concerns about AI?
Say students have cheated since the dawn of education, and those students that want to cheat are going to cheat no matter the technology at their disposal. Students that want to learn are going to learn. The parent piece is something that I've been thinking a lot about because if you're a parent that doesn't work in technology and you haven't really been keeping up with kind of what's going on in the AI world, which I would say is most parents, it can again be very overwhelming. Educators are overwhelmed by it, so I can't even imagine being, a parent and how overwhelming that must be. There are lots of resources out there that offer advice to parents. So there's plenty of platforms online that you could just go look at. But I would say the biggest thing is students really just need to learn how to use these tools safely and responsibly. And that's a conversation that I think the world is starting to realize that we haven't been having with our students. Because even in the age of the internet, that's a conversation that has needed to be had. Like we need to be teaching our students how do we become good digital citizens? How do we use the internet responsibly and use it in a way that's going to make the world a better place rather than just using it to replace critical thinking or to replace having to do the hard work. And I think the same conversations need to be had about these AI tools is just how do we use them responsibly? without jeopardizing, our original thoughts and ideas.
It's amazing. I'm guessing it's also a great opportunity for parents to learn because it's a tool that is only now becoming available, and kids are having this opportunity to either learn a completely new tool, and I'm guessing that's what AI is, and what we want it to be used as a tool, not a replacement for something else. And it could be a great opportunity for parents to also learn the tools that their kids are learning to be able to adapt to the fast changing world. And just like you said, the conversation that we've been having, we needed to have this conversation about being great citizens of the internet overall, but we're taking such big technological leaps that sometimes the ethics of it all are lagging behind a little bit. It's very interesting to see where we go.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think it's a chance for us to kind of redo what we missed with the dawn of the internet because it was such a new technology. And there are so few schools that I've heard of that actually teach their students how to use the internet responsibly. It's almost like we expect our students to just figure it out. But if they're never taught how to use it responsibly, then how are they going to learn how to use it responsibly? And obviously there's some, modeling that goes into it. Like we as adults can model proper behavior, but I think having those candid, explicit conversations with our students is critical, especially now with the dawn of AI.
What would you say, in your opinion, is being a responsible AI user?
So, yes, that's kind of a complicated question. There's a lot of components I think that go into it. I've taught my students how to use AI. I've been very fortunate to kind of be an English teacher during the height of this new experience in education. And some of the things that I talk to my students about and teach them is I teach them the difference between ethics and morals and where our responsibility lies when it comes to new technology. So we just have very open and honest conversations about that. One thing that I use to really get the conversation going is I'll give my students a scenario related to education. So I'll say, you know, is it ethical for you to use AI to help you solve a math problem that you've been stuck on? Or is it ethical for you to use AI to help you brainstorm ideas for a research paper? I pose these questions and then we just have a very open conversation about them. And I don't include any of my personal biases or my personal thoughts. I just listen and validate where I can. And it's really interesting to hear where our students kind of draw the line. I think we as adults, we tend to underestimate students a lot of the time because what I have found in my discussions with my students is that they are honestly more hesitant about this technology than a lot of adults are. They're concerned about it too. And I don't think we give them the benefit of the doubt in that regard. So they also want to learn how to use this properly. And what they're kind of finding out is as the students are using it, they're realizing that they don't know how to use it because a lot of them, they're so used to Google that they're trying to use ChatGPT and AI as the new Google, which it's not. And so having that conversation too, just teaching them like, okay, what's the difference between Google and between AI? And really it comes down to like Google is you use it as a tool to search for answers and to find the answers. AI is more of like a thought partner and, like your best buddy, where you're not going to ask your best buddy to go and write an essay for you, but you might ask your friend, hey, could you like read this essay and give me feedback? Or what do you think of this idea for this essay that I'm writing? So we have those conversations. I also talk to them about bias in AI and about how it's made because honestly, AI is made by humans and humans are inherently biased and that has been programmed into these AI machines. So just having that conversation and awareness that these machines are not infallible. They make mistakes, they have bias, and making students aware of that is so important because a lot of times they don't even realize that that's possible.
That's very true. That's really interesting that you bring that up as well. I think in classes, because I think we often treat AI as this kind of omniscient God that knows everything and can do anything, and that's quite quite false. And I think it's interesting when we have that conversation, we talk about it because there's many stories of how AI was used. For example, a while back when it was just being developed in, I think in the police department in the US, and it would take some of the reports of policemen that were also biased and would racially profile when analyzing certain information, which is interesting because it does bring the bias of the information that it's fed. I think unless you're actively aware of the biases and all of the pros and cons that AI can bring, that it could be quite damaging to use it without warning. Do you think it's easy to kind of learn on the go?
Yes, I do, because that's where I started with it. I feel like this is a tool where, you can't really know what it's capable of until you experience it firsthand. And there's a lot of playing around with it involved to really figure out what it can and cannot do. Now, granted, now there are a lot of people like me and like you that are exploring it more and talking about its capabilities and its limitations. So I think now there's a lot more resources out than when it was first introduced, obviously, because people who have more experience with it are creating these resources to help new users. But I do think that if you just kind of start playing around with it, you'll learn a lot just as you kind of go and figure out what it is and isn't capable of doing.
And for, say, a parent or a teacher that is, trying to learn, but also maybe teach their kids AI and all of the things that you talk about, not just how to use it, but the morals and ethics of it, the internal biases, and just generally approaches of how to use it. Where do you think a person would start with that?
That's a great question. Honestly, YouTube is great. There are so many people that are putting out these amazing YouTube videos that talk about all of these things. I know there's tons of TEDx, speakers now. They have a whole TEDx AI platform where it's just like all AI talks. And so they're really exploring like the nitty gritty details of AI. There's lots of places on the internet. Common Sense Media is probably one of my favorites for parents. That's where I would probably recommend parents go. They do a really great job of kind of breaking it down really simplistically. And they also have like a lesson, like a general like intro to AI that you can kind of go through as a parent and just to kind of understand the basics, like a lot of the basics that I've been mentioning here, and then even a little more basic. So it starts from like the very beginning and kind of works you through it.
That's amazing. Thank you. I think we're going to link all of those in the podcast as well so that parents, teachers, and anyone who wants to can use all of the resources that you're recommending because it's quite helpful. I think myself, I want to go and check them out right now just because I think there's as you said, because we're developing so fast, there's a lot of gaps in our knowledge as well. And I think as we're picking things up, there's a lot more than we can go back to and kind of relearn.
Yes, definitely.
And what about students? What should kind of their approaches be in learning with AI and using new tools and writing essays?
Man, yeah, that's something that I've also been grappling with as an educator. I feel like the burden really needs to be placed on the educators, not on the students. It's kind of up to the educators to teach these skills to our students. But if the students are coming from a place where they don't have educators that are supportive of this new technology and they still want to explore it on their own, there are lots of ways to do that. So Common Sense Media would be another great one for students to use as well. But also code.org has really great resources to kind of learn more about AI. And again, YouTube videos are great. But I would say the biggest thing with students is if I could have them take away one key, it would be that AI is not Google. It's not an ask and get an answer type of machine. I mean, yes, you can use it that way, but again, we've talked about how it's flawed and it's not always going to give you the correct answer. So just like you would with Google, you want to double check and find more resources to confirm anything that the AI machine is putting out. But more than using it in that capacity, I think it's a really great think partner. Like it's a really great brainstorming partner. It helps students kind of explore or, develop their ideas on a deeper level than maybe they would on their own. I don't know about you, but I get writer's block. Writing is not one of my favorite things to do. I have to do it because of the nature of my job, but I don't love it. And there are some days where my brain is not in it. And I literally just hit a wall that I cannot get past. And that's where AI has been so helpful in my life. I use that as my go-to whenever I'm stuck on a problem or a project that I'm working on. I go to AI and I tell it kind of what we're working on, and I tell it what I want it to do for me, and it acts as a brainstorming partner. So we kind of start going back and forth, and it helps me get past that wall and get past that block. And if I'm using it in that capacity and others are using it in that capacity, then we need to teach our students how to use it in that capacity as well.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. Just like you said, brainstorm with AI. I really like using it as everything about as a medical expert, a personal coach, and a nutritionist, right? Much everyone and everything. But also, just like you said, when I have a block or when I'm just not feeling something, I would go on to write like a whole essay of what I need to get like maybe 3 lines of text that I actually needed. But sometimes it's really difficult to get over doing something specific that you need to do. Like it just gets so difficult and intimidating, that task. So you would rather do all of that creative procrastination around it. And AI is a very, I guess, productive way to do it.
It really is. Going back to your point about it being your nutritionist, when I was introducing introducing ChatGPT to my computer science class, we were really diving into more of the how was it made, but like half of my class hadn't even experienced ChatGPT this year, which kind of blew my mind. So I pulled it up and I said, "What do we want to ask it to do?" And one of them said, "Write a cookie recipe using Red Bull as one of the ingredients, like the energy drink." And it did. And then my student went on to make the cookies to test them to see if they were actually good. And they were some of the best cookies that I've ever eaten. So, yes, AI is a great too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I also, when you have a lot of leftovers and stray ingredients in the fridge and you don't know what to do with them, Hera is also a great tool. Exactly like a companion. They are like a more experienced buddy in whatever field that you're looking at.
They're your friend when was will bring up. Right?
Exactly, yeah. Sometimes they're your therapist when you just need to brainstorm and vent. Sometimes they just help you, I don't know, give feedback. It's quite funny. I love using ChatGPT. Anything from work to personal things, and I think it can be quite useful. I also wonder, if obviously I didn't have AI when I was a student. I'm not sure how that experience would have changed. And when you're in it, it's very, very different. I did have some, I guess, similar tools. For example, Wolfram Alpha, you said, would you use AI on a problem that you can't really solve? And I remember I did. There were certain things, and it would kind of break it down and give you all of the step by step answers. And then it would be much easier. So if you use one example, then you can kind of learn from that and use that to build your knowledge. But I think it's really difficult to navigate when you have so much information and so many tools at your disposal. It's complete freedom. Would you say that you actually had kind of cases or experiences where AI really helps students progress in their learning?
Absolutely. Especially in my English class this year. So I hadn't taught English for the past 3 years. It's what I did before I moved to my new job, which focuses on technology. But we have a lot of teacher shortages in America. And so I ended up having to pick up an English class just to help the English department out at my school. And I was so grateful for that experience because here I was teaching students how to write in the age of AI, and it was invaluable. And I was working with students that are not comfortable in English. So it was kind of like a class for students that couldn't make it in the regular English class. And so they needed a lot of extra support. There were some learning disabilities in the class and stuff like that. So I taught them how to use AI specifically to help them with their writing because these are students that are not necessarily going to go on to pursue a 4-year degree, college degree. They're students that might go and enter the workforce right after high school, and they're never going to need to write essays in their future career. I mean, I can't really think of many careers where you actually do have to write essays unless you're a writer. So I approached it from the perspective of how can I help my students, learn how to use this tool in the way that's going to be most beneficial for them in the long run of their life. And for me, that was teaching them how to correctly prompt the AI to get what they needed from it. And the feedback that I got from them when we started kind of exploring what these AI tools were capable of was incredible. When we first started and we were first prompting, one of my students literally said out loud, he goes, "This does not sound like me." And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't because it's not you. So then that spiraled into the discussion of how can we make it sound more like us? How can we make the writing more genuinely ours? And so we really worked the entire year on how to build effective prompts for the AI machines. And I think that that is such a large component that even a lot of people utilizing it don't realize the way you prompt the AI is going to impact the quality of what it produces for you. And so just asking it to, write an essay about the Great Gatsby is not necessarily going to produce what you need, but the more detail you can give it and the more specific you can be with your prompting, the better quality output you're going to get from these machines. And so that's really what I focused on teaching my students this year.
That makes a lot of sense. I think when I mentioned that when I used ChatGPT, I would have like a really, really long essay of what I wanted to do. And that's like a really small output because no, it's often how you really structure it. You end up putting a lot of time and effort into giving the right thing, but I guess it learns as well. And I think what we've been learning, and I've been discussing it, with my parents, with my friends as well, is it teaches you how to be a better communicator overall. Often we blame the other person for misunderstanding, for example, but I think in ChatGPT, in AI, you cannot blame them for something that you are not quite delivering correctly. And if you're getting frustrated about the responses that you're getting, then perhaps it is something that you're not phrasing right. And we have really had this long experience of how my parents were getting a little bit frustrated with the responses that they were getting. And it is often about the prompts that you give in real life as well. It is how you communicate your thoughts. It is how you set your expectations and what you choose to receive. So I really like your approaches of morals versus ethics about real life applicability because AI was developed by humans. It is, in a way, flawed as well, and it is how we interact with it.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Natasha. I think it's incredible what you do. And generally, with technology integration, with AI integration into learning, it's quite difficult to, I think, know how to approach it, know where to begin, know what to do. And the difficult part is, I guess, also communicating with humans about technology, with teachers, educators, overall, parents, students. I think that might is it the most difficult part, would you say?
Yeah, I think getting people on board and getting them to understand that it's not the end of the world and that it's not like the AI that they see in the movies. It's not going to like take over the world or anything like that. And I think that's the kind of the biggest hurdle is getting people to understand that this really is the next tool and it's a great tool if you know how to use it correctly. It's not the end all be all.
Yeah, the biggest, not necessarily a struggle, but the biggest hurdle in technology education is humans.
Yes, absolutely it is.
That's very interesting. Is there anything else that you'd like to maybe share about your experiences and or anything else we might not have mentioned?
I think we covered everything pretty well. Yeah, I think what I would just emphasize is giving students the benefit of the doubt. I'm doing research right now for my doctorate. I'm pursuing my doctorate in education, and my dissertation is going to be on AI and its impact on education. And so I put out a survey recently to the students at my school about how they're using AI and if they're using AI. And, I feel like as educators, we tend to oversimplify. We kind of lump all of our students into a category and we roll with it. So, what I've been hearing from my teachers at my school is all of our students are using AI to cheat. Overwhelmingly, the research that I've done has shown that that is not the case. And half of our students aren't even using AI regularly, if at all. And so I think again, it goes back to that, our students are just as nervous about this technology as we are. They don't know how to use it. They're not comfortable with it. So they're not using it. And yes, of course, we have, that maybe like 1% that is using it to cheat, but it's not the majority. And so I think just giving students the benefit of the doubt and realizing that this is as new and frightening to them as it may be to us, and just approaching it from that perspective is kind of the most vital to having these open conversations that we're having right now and to advancing education as we know it.
That's really beautiful. to really say that we are on the same side, everyone. We're all learning together. We're all using those tools together and discovering, and to just kind of be compassionate to each other as we go through this process. Thank you so, so much once again. I think this has been a very interesting discussion. I definitely took a lot of notes. I'm going to make sure to check out a lot of the resources. And just for our listeners as well, AI in education isn't just a trend, it's a shift, changing how we teach, how we learn. And whether you're a parent, a student, educator, you don't need to have all the answers, but you can start asking better questions, creating better prompts, and shaping the future of learning together. And if you'd like to learn more, you can join us on July 10th for the EdHeroes Global Forum Technology and Innovation in Education. It's free, it's fully online, it's open to everyone. You can find the registration link in the episode description and follow Natasha on her LinkedIn to get all of the most updated news about AI and education. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you at the next episode.